Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we, as a group, to get started with this exhibition, we spent a lot of time at the beginning, kind of talking about what does our work have in common with each other. Sorry, they're telling me to be louder. What does our work have in common with each other? And we did spend like a lot of time going in circles about how it all fits together and what themes overlap, which is where the title came from. The more we talked about our work, the more we thought we're all getting at something that we're trying to understand ourselves from three different perspectives. Materially different and process different. And so that's sort of where the idea for how we would put our work together into a group would go. I can't talk louder than that. Naturally. So that's sort of where we went. We have gotten a lot of feedback and questions about the exhibition's title and how our work fits together and how it goes with that title. And we're super grateful for that. We feel like we have really tried to make the show and the promotion of the show more accessible. And we're really grateful just to hear and let it be expansive for our practices to understand where other people are coming from and things that we never thought about. So that's sort of, I think, we're just super grateful for all of the feedback and for this chance to talk about our work together and sort of the impetus behind the work.
I mean, we just, our work, we look at the same thing, we just look at it from a different lens and a different viewpoint, and our methods in creating work are different.
Well, so the title is a parable, and
Yes.
so the parable is three blind men that describe an elephant, and you have three blind men, they're all touching a different part of the elephant, and when they're describing it to one another, what they're describing is very different, and they don't believe each other, but it's about everybody's viewpoints are valid, that we are all touching an elephant, and so that's the parable, and that's what we're coming at.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're coming from. So we thought we would each just take a few minutes to talk about our own work and then have questions and open it up. So we decided I would start.
Yes.
So my background, I grew up as a swimmer, and I say this because I spent a lot of time in locker rooms, like in bathing suits and seeing other people in locker rooms in bathing suits like my whole life. And then I worked for Sears in the lingerie department, which put me in fitting rooms with lots of people who needed support for their bodies. So I've spent like a lot of time up till that point in proximity with people in their clothing. So my undergraduate degree is costume design. And again, that puts me working with the figure, kind of creating identities, I would say, like taking away an actor's identity and giving them a new identity made of cloth. And so a lot of my practice comes from the idea of like shaping the body, adorning the body, protecting the body. So I think that's why a lot of my work is body colored, it's body shaped, it's body scaled. I think of fiber as sort of an extension. Like I think of our bodies as living, breathing fiber. Like we're just tissue. We're tissue, and then we're muscle made of muscle tissue, and then our bones are ossified fiber tissue. So I sort of think of the human as made of fiber. So most of my work is about that, and about what our bodies do and how they move, and how the parts we expose, the parts we hide. So this specific set, up until now, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the exterior, the skin, and how we drape that. And I think this work has taken me to a place that's relatively new to me, which is like the interior of the body. So I was talking about the three pieces that I have in the show that are on that wall. And my daughter said to me when I was trying to name them and come up with descriptions for them, she's like, well, it's like guts, bones, and skin. And I was like, that's what I should have named them. But that's really what they're about how we can know our own body, but we can't at all. Like we don't know actually what's happening in there, but we can affect it. Time affects it, nature affects it, things we do affect it. And so it's really that's what my work is, sort of an exploration of the show itself.
I'll go next. So my work is on this wall, and I consider myself a weaver and a textile artist, but the work I'm working in right now is photography. So as we're a group of artists trying to fit together, and we're fiber artists, but I felt like, I'm not fitting in. But as Heather said, and as Elaine said, we are really all talking about the same subject matter, just different aspects of it, different parts of it. So for me, I'm looking at the absence of the body or the loss of the body, looking at individual stories of missing people and trying to explore what that means for us as a society, how each story is very individual, but it's also they're very universal in some ways. And this work is built out of a series that I did in the summer of last year and also continued this year of these soft form milk cartons, which as a object is very malleable and soft and can blow away, can disappear. But they're also in the US a very iconic symbol from the 1980s of missing children. You think of milk cartons and the missing children on there. Some younger people don't always get that reference, but once you talk to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, there was this cartoon that I saw, this old cartoon or this old thing." So that's where that comes from. So I'm using these soft sculptures in the photographs that are on the wall, and then also I'm using those soft sculptures in soft sculptural photographs that are on the podium, which are soft Polaroids. So that is where I'm entering the show from with the body.
Okay, so this is me. It is untitled. My background, I went to ASFA for 6 years, graduated visual arts, then went to Birmingham Southern, got my undergraduate degree in art history. Then I went to Cranbrook, I got my master's in fiber art. So that is my my degree. I consider myself, though, a soft sculptor, but I particularly love making installation work. I like having, work that only exists for a moment in time, right? And with that, there's a lot of flexibility about how the same piece can grow with me. And so I've been doing that. I've been reworking old installation pieces, and that is what this is. So about half of the material here I made for a installation piece when I was a senior in undergrad. And it zigzagged across the corner of a room. And so when I decided to rework it, I did make some more. I had some of the same fabric, so I just made more. And then I also added orange to give it, visually a contrast. So the poles, I have one piece I've done several versions of that's a freestanding installation piece where I use poles and weave it sort of like this, but a lot tighter, and it's a freestanding thing. But for this, I wanted to make something that was a little bit more closely referencing like a weaving or a tapestry. And so that's why, it is definitely more in that rectangle tapestry form on a wall, but, it's being mounted with flagpole holders so that it, engages space in a different way to get these shadows. So, when thinking about what is the piece about, I really got to thinking about, in ancient Greece, people believed that your life was a tapestry. and it's being woven as you live. And of course, when you die, the weft thread is cut by the fates. And so that's what I see this as, because, when I made the original piece, that was a big moment. I was about to graduate college. At that point, I knew I was going to, leave, go to grad school. And this point in time, I'm engaged. So it's, a different point in time, new changes. And so I really think it represents, weaving those milestones into my tapestry.
I'll ask you a question, or make questions slash observation. So a lot of your installation work is always, it's in the physical space, which then I always think of it interacting with the viewer and the viewer's body, but then there's also the interaction of you creating the work in your body. And so for me, your work is always referencing the body, in that, like, how do you get all the way up there? You're such a small person. So I'm assuming you're using a tool or an aid, to like a ladder, to get up there. But also that weaving is a physical process or tapestry. And so there's this like body motion. And then with this piece, when you stand with it or next to it, you interact with it as a body because of the way it comes out on the wall. Do you think about that, or is that just intuitively come into your work?
Well, like I say, I really enjoy making freestanding pieces, and I really wanted something that was sort of bridging that. So, having a freestanding piece, changes the environment, and you have to kind of react to it. So, yeah, it's changing the environment. You have to react to it. Mm-hmm.
Does the opportunity to exhibit or the piece come first?
The opportunity.
The opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially because, like I say, this is reworking an old piece. So some of it, existed balled up in a closet, right? But really, for installation work, where it's going is half of it. So having a place is paramount for knowing what I'm going to do.
Heather, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you talked about your three pieces being like the guts, the skeletal, and then like the skin. And these are new works for you, do you work on these different pieces at the same time, or are they are you working on one and then the next, or do you go back and forth? Do you have other pieces that you've worked on that didn't feel like they were part of this, or do feel like they're part of this but just didn't come into the show? And like, what is your working process?
I think process-wise, I want to work with. So I'll think, I really want to work with this. That's where the skin, calling it skin now. Now it doesn't mean it. That piece came from. And it's like I want to do a thing to it. And then as I repeat that physicality to the material. So this one, for example, is on a knitting machine. So as I'm knitting pieces and knitting pieces and knitting pieces, piles happen. And then at some point for me, because I sort of anthropomorphize my work, it's almost like it starts fighting back. I'm like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I keep adding. And at some point, it starts to tell me what it wants to be. But like you, I don't ever have this like, this is what it will look like at the end. I just know what I want to do and what the material is. So in that sense, like sometimes they're very stubborn, the piles. And so I'm making things and I'm like, what are you going to do? And it's like giving me the silent treatment. So then I'll move on to something else. Then work with that until I get to a place where I don't know what's next. And I'll work on the next thing. And then I'll come back to the first. So like in my studio right now, there was a fourth piece and I brought it in, and when I put it, I couldn't decide what three would be there. And it just instantly was like, I'm not done, finished. Like I thought it might be finished, but then seeing it with the other pieces, it was like, you got more to do. So I think like I have this sort of like very lively relationship with the work where I'm like expecting it to also show up and do its part. So I have to have lots going, because if one's not talking to me, like I just need let it go. And then sometimes I come back and now it's ready for me. So it's like a very animated relationship.
And then for both of you, do you collect materials that you think might be a piece in the future?
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
You
Yeah. Are you a
collect
hoarder?
like,
Yeah.
fabrics and like can you talk about like a little bit about what this is, like what it's made of, like how you made it and what it's made of. Like Heather's talked about like knitting machine and like actually I want to, and also sorry, I want you to talk about the middle piece too, like so afterwards talk about that. But yeah.
So the weft is made from well, the core is wire, and then I've covered it in fiber fill, which is just polyester fiber that would go inside pillows or whatever. And then I wrap the fabric around it, and the fabric is held on with embroidery floss. And so the fabric is a stretchy fabric, so it has some give. That's why there's able to be some bulkier areas, and filled tighter with or filled more full with the fiber fill. But yeah, nothing is. It's just sort of, it would fall apart very easily if you just like went and wrenched it, because it's just sort of wrapped on.
And your middle piece. Yep. Like like construction, like
So that piece is wicker and then twine, but it's just wicker. So the thing, like the three of them are very different physically. Like structurally, the one on the end that's like the guts, it sort of has a little bit of its own shape and it holds a little bit, but it is malleable the way our guts are. But then the second one, the thing that is so interesting to me about wicker is it has muscle memory. So you can wet it and shape it and dry it. And like if we were to like go over and just push on it like we were doing chest compressions, it would bounce back to the shape of it. And that feels really important to that piece for me, like the use of the wicker or wire when you bend it. But like the idea that it has like a resilience to it feels important to its subjectivity. And then the last one has absolutely none. Like if we just took that off the wall and dropped it, it would fall like a t-shirt into a pile and we could throw it in the washing machine. And that's skin. So I think like it's important to me the materiality of it in addition to its subject, that it works with that. Yeah, I think I like that. Did I even touch it? Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you mentioned this yet, but I know you've told us that for like your photographs, they're about missing people, but these are actually in the places where the people were last seen.
Yes. So I search out the last known location that someone was sighted. So it may not be where they live. It could be grocery store, anywhere. So I try to pinpoint where that is. So I have like a collection or database that I spreadsheet and newspaper articles and everything else that I can rummage up and find, and that's what I work from to identify the location. Sometimes it's really easy, and other times it's just very vague, or I come up with multiple potential locations because news articles are not always correct. Just like a photograph is not the full picture. It's not always what you see in a photograph. It's part of something. So sometimes I don't have the precise location, in which case I don't generally take a photograph. In one case, for one of these, I did decide to, because it was all the way up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I didn't know when I would be up there again. And in going to the place to take the photograph, I ended up in a conversation with the son of the person that I was taking the photograph for. And so they were able to point me to the other location, which I had thought I might do, but it was a little harder to pinpoint. But because they lived in Fort Wayne, they're like, that doesn't exist anymore, but it's at the corner of this place, and there's this building here now. So I was able to go there and then photograph the correct location. But there's this conversation that I had and all this background research that I kind of do.
So to follow that, when you think about your practice in its totality, fiber artist,
Yeah.
but then like how much of you is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's so intense, and then the fiber's easy. Like
Yeah.
somehow,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you feel like that. Like,
I
is
mean,
there a
so
part
so
that is-
before, so my background, so I have a undergraduate in fiber material study, which is where I learned weaving. And then while I was doing that, I started working in museums, working with costume and art and like cataloging costumes. So working with textiles. But what I think I liked most was all the records and the catalogs and all the stuff that is not the public side. And then so I did a degree in history and art history, which is a lot of primary research. And then I worked in museums and was not an artist. Then I became an artist. So I think that it's embedded in me to do this research and have this like record finding information. That for me, I think, is my collection of materials, the way that you collect physical materials. I'm collecting papers and documents and digital materials. But I've never ever thought of myself as a records artist, or like I always just go, I'm a fiber artist. Even if I'm not doing fiber, I'm a fiber artist. But I've never ever considered myself a research or a media. But I do a lot. That is a big part. Like I go down weird rabbit holes and I find things on eBay that I don't know how I find. I just end up there, and then I'm like, oh, I've got to buy this because this is a news article that I can't find anywhere else, or a photograph of something.
What's your, like, for your process, like, take us through, like, final.
Well, I think in a lot of ways our process is very similar because I also just like get on a kick of wanting to do something and then I just do it until there's a lot of it. And then once I have a lot of it, I figure out what it's going to be. So very, very similar to you, I think.
So what is it that draws you
I don't know. I used to have friends that say, it's funny, you're so small and yet your art takes up so much space. And so, maybe that is me, taking up space.
Yeah.
Some people like to drive a big truck.
Bigger is bigger.
Yeah.
More is more. Yeah. Do y'all have questions about the work or things we talked about or comments? It is lots of things. So it's from a lot of things. It started as some wool roving and some bats, and some of them I hand spun like with a drop spindle into yarn, and then that was like crocheted or braided. So we have that part of it, and that's the raw materials. And then there's also like some whip stitching and more braiding and braiding of the braids. And then they're whip stitched together. But the outside edge, that's store-bought acrylic yarn, and that is just traditionally crocheted. So it has like a lot of different handwork.
Do you sketch out what you think the end product will be, or you just?
I always feel guilty that I don't have like a richer sketching part. I always think I should try sketching, but I really don't, because I think with my textile background, like there's a lot of flat patterning, but there's a lot of physical draping. I drape the work the way I would create like a dress on a dress form. So I have to physically be in the space with the work and move it around on the, like I have a wall that I can put push pins in and move things around, and I have to physically make it into the thing. I really don't know what it's going to become in any way, shape, or form. Like, is it wall hanging? Is it going to be on the floor? Will it be draped over a sculpture stand? Does it need an armature? Like, these are all questions that I ask myself as I'm working with it, because it does work back with me. I don't in advance sketch. Feels like the wrong answer.
No,
right?
I don't.
I want to be a person who can like sketch out an idea and make that thing, but I feel like then I don't allow the material to work on me also.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like if I tried to sketch out how I was going to do this, then that doesn't give the material the opportunity to do what it wants to do because there's wire in it. And so as you can see, sometimes that wire is like, I require lots of space right here. And so it really had to react to that.
Yeah, you do. But I will say in my costume design practice, all of that is sketched, 100%. There's renderings, and then I do flat patterns, and all of that. That is very, very like, this is what we need at the end. Then in my visual art practice, I'm like the opposite.
I don't have a sketchbook.
You don't?
It's not a traditional sketchbook. It's more of a notebook. Maybe there's a little picture, but it's not. Yeah, it's very sketchy and I'm going to do a portrait, so it's just like a note that it's a portrait, so that's it. It's not more detailed than that for me. For me, I think it's the note, the research is the sketch. Yeah. So we all were feeling like our work in different ways. We were feeling like we couldn't quite figure out how our work connected. I felt like my work didn't fit with theirs because theirs is so physically in the space and physically textural. And I'm working in this like right now. I'm working in a very flat, photographic, non-textile, you don't want to go up and put your hands on the photographs, but you do want to touch the weaving, like the weaving and your skins and rib cages. So I felt like I was not fitting in. I think Elaine, you felt like you weren't fitting in, and
because it's installation. Y'all's wasn't.
Yeah. But we just realized how we were talking and discussing the same things. We just had different approaches and perspectives on the body, and there's so many different conversations you can have about the body that are all very valid, and we just each have a different approach, and that's where we realized that was kind of a way to yeah,
like a bag that we can put all of it together.
This helps. For me, not missing us in the art team, but as though they were people, and it feels like I think together they really work.
Thank you.
You talked about speaking.
Yeah.
You talked about speaking with individuals.
I not that often. It's if someone is interested in a conversation, if I see somewhere that they are, engaged in searching for their missing family member, then I will interact with them, and I do that's not work with. I have connections with people that have open cases, but I haven't done work on their cases. So this was an unusual interaction of happenstance that I was not expecting. But navigating conversation with someone that's got a missing family member is a lot. You don't want to trigger that. You want to be a resource or an advocate for them. So that's what I hope to do with my work. That was a very unusual. But he was really he was touched that someone still remembered, because he is now older than his father was when his father went missing.
Photographs that you were taking, you talked about milk bottles being from the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and those kinds of photographs. I don't remember growing up. Yeah, with the little bird one, and also the index cards also
Yeah.
all of this feels
Yeah, from like a different time. Note cards. I mean, I use note cards as a way to keep records. Through grad school, I'm very like physical object for notes, not just digital. I mean, I do have digital spreadsheets, but the physical is important. And the actual size of the photograph, there's a wallet size. So that's thinking about your loved people, the people that you love, the people you hold dear. You have a photo of them in your wallet, so they're wallet-sized photographs. So that's why that's that size and those little rounded corners, because in your wallet, the wallet size, the square ones, rectangular ones, the corners always get like worn. So you get the ones that are like already rounded, because they're gonna last a little longer and look a little better longer in your wallet, because the corners don't get worn down. But that is also that, trying to think about that intimate relationship with a person, and a missing person. Like, what do you have left of a person when they're gone?
To me, the cards made the photographs accessible. In relationship with the photographs, had there not been there, they spoke to me and said, "Oh, this is kind of thing."
Thank you. Oh, yes. Yes, there's two. So the other thing with wallet photographs, you normally get multiples, because you're going to give them to multiple people to put in their wallets. So when I got these printed, I got 4. So I used 2 of them to create the images. So I cut out the milk cartons and then placed the image behind, with a little spacer, so that the milk cartons are also missing, but then you see the milk cartons. So that, again, that empty space, or thinking about that emptiness again, and also with the one missing, having 5 instead of having 6, like a nice even number, or having 5 and centering the 2 underneath, but having that clear emptiness to that area.
Definitely I do. This is new work for me. So so some of it, especially the incorporates, I started a dye garden. So when I learned to dye, I do all my own dyeing, if possible. Like the things that aren't found and already dyed, I dye myself. So most things start as just like a raw muslin. But in theater, you need to be like really, you have to be able to replicate a costume for one person for another in the exact same color. So synthetic dyes were what I learned back in the late 90s. But it's just over time, I thought I would like to move into a more natural dye place where I don't have to be so putting these things in the brain. So I started in the summer of this year. I built my own dye garden where I raised my own plants and then harvested them. Some of this, the spine one and the one on the end, are for things that I harvested, and that's where the dye came from. So that the colors in my work up until this set were much more vivid. I mean, I was using like synthetic dyes where you can really easily get super deep, super bright, super repeatable colors, whereas it takes like a little bit more that kind of color out of natural materials. So a lot of what you're seeing, that sort of thing, is from that. Yeah. And the learning curve of going from being able to just like teaspoon of this, boil it for this long, done, it's carmine. Like that's a very different thing than trying to
You have a relationship with the material again.
from the beginning.
It's
like,
going to do what it's going to do.
Yes, it's going to do what it's going to do. And you can trick it, you know, leave it soak longer, use more, like, but you're only going to get so much. So, yeah, marigolds have become my favorite thing because they're so reliable for color. Yeah, I've been playing with indigo. I grew a bunch of indigo, and that's been a disaster.
That is a hard.
So, yeah, high learning curve. So some of them are just super easy right off, and then some are get better at it. Yeah, it's definitely a dimmer set than I have worked with. I'm at a place with the indigo where I'm like, okay, I've done what I can. It's all dead now, right? Like next time I'll try again. But I'm like, I'm definitely gonna. That is not a pick it up and just do it situation. So yeah, there's a lot of and growing it well and knowing when to harvest it and how to harvest it and how to store it. Yeah, so over time, maybe I'll get some deeper colors back in the work, but who knows?
Yeah, I've done that too because I also grow my own cotton. So I've done, several installation pieces with the cotton that I've grown. And I made one piece where I dyed it with turmeric. So, I mean, turmeric, it's not a lasting color, but it's very vivid for a few months. Yeah.
Well, and I like that. I do like the idea of over time, like their bodies and our bodies age and they get wrinkled and they fade. And so like over time, like especially the skin piece, elastic, knowing that over time that rubber will break down. So every time I hang that piece, it's going to hang a little more droopy, a little longer, a little more wrinkled. And I think that's neat to have that kind of like starting with bright turmeric and knowing it's sort of like fugitiveness and it will just disappear on you. I think that can be a really powerful part of the work. Think about like at all in your work?
I mean, I think I'm thinking about time and passage of time, but I think coming from my museum background, I'm always trying to use archival materials.
So it doesn't change. But it's like you're taking something that is passing and making it permanent.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all acknowledging.
For sure. Any last questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.